order. But of course, Anthony, going with all the drama that I was talking about before, reports are saying that Jacob Trouba is refusing to report if traded. There's still some facts on this. I'm still trying to learn right now. But apparently Trouba, who we've documented numerous times, has a 15-team no trade list, but he is very much playing hardball right now. Anthony, share your thoughts on this first.
Well, first I want to clear it up. He never. That's incorrect. He hasn't. He, his agent, no one has stated that he refuses to report. What Larry Brooks was saying in that article 2 days ago was that there are teams that are concerned that he wouldn't report because of his wife and her role, how he doesn't want to leave New York. So that's incorrect. He never said that. The So that's the issue. Teams are just they know he doesn't want to leave, and they're concerned that if he was traded, what he would do. But look, Jacob Trouba, he's doing the best by his family right now. You know, he's got a kid that was just born a couple of months ago. His wife, is a doctor, which Lyra Brooks laid out. Her residency is lasting for another year, which coincides, with I think Larry Brooks said July of 2025. I think at that point her residency would be finished, and that coincidentally he'd have 1 year left on his contract. I don't think he's doing anything wrong personally. He was given his contract by Jeff Gordon, and he's sticking within his rights. Now, if you want to call him, not providing his no trade list early, I mean, sure, you could say that maybe that's a little bit of him playing games there. But when a player has an NTC, they have to submit their list to their team by July 1st every year. So he didn't have to give it to Chris Drury early, and he knew by waiting until July 1st to provide it, then that makes it more difficult to trade, because now at that point, July 1st, a lot of teams are already planning what they're going to do in free agency, and it would be harder to consummate a trade. So I get Ranger fans that are kind of had it with Trouba because of his play on the ice and, his bloated salary, and, they could do a lot if he were to move. But again, he's just staying within his rights and doing what he's allowed to do within the CBA and his contract. I'm a father. My wife has a career. So I relate to what he's doing right now. He doesn't want to uproot his family. She can't leave. Literally, she can't leave. She has a residency for another year. She's worked her whole life to get there. And this is different than when they go on a road trip, presuming her crazy business schedule, right? When the Rangers are away, I'm sure they have some sort of nanny sitting. But when you're talking like moving and never being home at all, that really complicates things. So I don't blame Chris Drury for not wanting to go. Jeff Gordon gave him that contract, and he's doing within his rights. Now, Chris Drury's hands are tied. Yes, they are. He could have bought him out, but he opted not to, thinking maybe there's a chance he could trade him. But here we are, and I think, at this point, unfortunately for Ranger fans, I think he's going to be here for another year, and then kind of go from there. So, I mean, I see a lot of comments about waiving him. Yes, the Rangers can waive him indeed, but they only save like 1.82 million on the salary cap. So, is it really worth it to waive him for that extra 1.82? I don't know. Chris Drury could determine that, but that doesn't really help the Rangers all that much.
Thanks for the clarification on this, Anthony, about him kind of dragging his feet in order to get this done, being like, it's like one of those things where somebody asks you to leave and you're like, I really don't want to go, and you're a little bit slow in doing that. That's great. This is different from the Mika Zibanejad situation, because when we were discussing this and frustrating me, and I was getting a little bit heated about this because players just don't waive a no move clause. He doesn't have one anymore. That's the simple thing. So there's still 17 teams that can go trade him to. And now they got the list. So let's see if he's a Ranger opening night, because this isn't going to end well. And if it's simply put that it's just he's not going to report somewhere, then that's going to create more traction. I wonder where the rumors are going around. And look, and again, I appreciate the correction on this, because when so many different stories are out there in the Twitter sphere, you don't know what to believe. And I'm still trying to go and figure this one out myself. But here's what it comes down to. He's got a 15-team no trade list, unless there is a specific clause in there for him not to be traded. And I've said this to people, they've had a little bit of a laugh about this. So that clause, I don't think exists. You trade him. You get that list and you trade him, if that's going to be the case. Because right now, and look, again, I empathize somebody is doing right by their family. I would do the same. You would do the same. We'd all do it. But he's got a contract. You can't just amend your contract. Because if that happens, basically it's like a Gary Sheffield thing, where he's just gonna go, yeah, I'm not gonna report there, and then he doesn't report there. And if he didn't, it would null and void his contract anyway, and they gave up assets for nothing. We've gone through this a couple times in our group chat. I want to know all the facts, but I can't help but say Jacob Trouba is no longer the captain of the New York Rangers, for starters. It just seems to me like there's a lot of friction that's there. And we've already seen a captain of a team move on this week where there's a lot of friction. We'll get more into that in a little bit. But, it's not. But, again, this is a contract Jeff Gorton signed. And everybody wants to bring this up. Jeff Gorton's the one that did this. And I understand that Trouba's wife, the 1 year of her residency was deferred. I look, the New York Rangers have to make a decision on this sooner or later, Anthony, and it's not going to get pretty. And the fan reaction of this is going to be very, very bad.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't know what else Chris Drury could do. I mean, it from what it seems like that at this point in the offseason that he's not going anywhere, because, again, he provided the Rangers with their list on July 1st. I would assume, a lot of the teams on that list, because I would imagine he probably made that list strategically and put teams on there that he knows can't trade for him, whether it be cap space, what type, where they are in terms of their trajectory. Like a bad team isn't going to trade for Jacob Trouba right now. So I don't know what Chris Drury could do. I think his hands are tied, and it's an unfortunate thing, because listen, I'm sure Jacob Trouba has enough self-awareness to know that the Rangers clearly would prefer for him not to be there. But at the same time, he likely needs to be in New York for at least another year. So it really comes down to Chris Drury. Can he be ruthless enough to find a team that's on his trade list that still has a capability to make the deal in terms of cap space or roster space. Again, a lot of these teams by now, already have their roster set. We see it all the time, Mark. Like the free agency and the activity really slows down after the 4th of July. After the 4th of July, the league goes pretty quiet. I mean, there's some exceptions. Matt Tkachuk was traded on July 22nd, like 2 years ago. But for the most part, in another couple of days, the off season is going to come to a standstill till at least September. So, again, I don't know what else Drury could do at this time. I mean, my guess is that he's going to be on the Rangers this coming year. I don't see him being moved at this point. And this goes back to that tweet that I reported after the Rangers got eliminated, with a source that I trust, that said Jacob Trouba isn't going anywhere. And I think a lot of that was because of his control that he has, his salary, and it's just the complexity of making a trade like that. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, again, I know there is a second buyout window for teams, but that's only if your player goes to arbitration and if the award is $4 million or more. So, I mean, the Rangers have 2 RFAs right now, or 3: Zach Jones, Braden Schneider, and Ryan Lindgren. So, I mean,
Mhm.
Schneider and Zach Jones clearly aren't getting an award over $4 million. It's possible that Ryan Lindgren could, which would trigger a second buyout window. But who's to say that actually even gets that far? So I don't know if a buyout's even an option anymore for the Rangers either. So my guess is that they are going to have Trouba on the roster, and then Drury will revisit this next offseason. That's my take on it.
Everybody, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a cough. Look, hockey-wise, Anthony, this is where the other problem is. Jacob Trouba's never lived up to this contract. Not in any way. And he's a third-pairing defenseman right now. There are things he contributes to this team. But on the other hand, can you really have your captain be a third-pairing defenseman? I'll maintain this, and this is my opinion. So just reading tea leaves and watching games last year in the playoffs, that as Josh is saying right here, with him on the team and no cap or assets to do anything with, it'll be another wasted year. Well, let's see what it's like next year, because with him on this roster right now, he's not going to accept the demotion to the third pairing. He's not going to accept limited time, and every Ranger fan, God forbid they end up losing Ryan Lindgren out of this, they're all going to look at and turn their ire at Trouba. And opening night, he comes out, he might get booed right now. So, yes, fences have to be mended. We will see about that. I have maintained all along that the Jacob Trouba era needs to end.
I don't understand the booing him part. Like, this isn't a case of a guy like Kirk Muller, when he came to the Islanders, and he didn't want to play for the team, and that fans take offense, because you don't want to play for your team. Okay, go screw off. This guy is not wanting to leave because of his wife and his kid, and I respect that. He's doing what's best for his family, and I think the majority of Ranger fans that say they would boo him, if they were in his situation and were doing something for their wife and their kid, they would probably do the same exact thing as Jacob Trouba. So I don't know how you boo a guy for doing what's right by his family. They're hockey players. They're all about team and wanting to win, but they're still a human being. They're still a person, and their first priority is their family. I'm sorry, that's just how it goes.
That's one way of looking at it, Anthony, and that's perfectly fine to look at it this way. Other way to look at it is Game 4, up 2-1 over the Florida Panthers. Who was on the ice grossly out of position? Jacob Trouba. Facing elimination, Game 6. Who was grossly out of position in on the first goal? Jacob Trouba. Fans are tired of this. They're tired of it, and it's those things that you count up and point out. Because here's the other thing I pointed out with this: if he's doing this strictly for his family, admirable way of doing it. Every player that has played a professional sport has tried doing it for their family. It's not just the single guys, all the ones that have been there. There have been plenty of players that didn't want to get traded. Hell, Jackie Robinson got traded to the Giants and he retired, because once you're traded, anybody can be traded. Brian Leach has been traded. Wayne Gretzky's been traded twice. Like, look, sometimes you roll with the punches on this. This is the life that you signed up for. And not for nothing, you had 6 years of a no-move clause, or 5, whatever it is at the moment. I took the opposite position on Mika Zibanejad because he has a no-trade, no-move clause. Let me be very clear about that.
And the big difference here is Mika Zibanejad, most hockey players, their wives are stay-at-home moms because their husbands make millions and millions of dollars, and they'll go anywhere. So when me and Marc were getting into it, and I said you can move Zibanejad, even though he has an NMC, and it's true because his wife's not a doctor with a huge career. So there's a big difference between Trouba and anybody else kind of wanting to stay. The majority of NHL players' wives aren't, lawyers and doctors. So there's unfortunately for Ranger fans, Jacob Trouba's wife has aspirations of being a doctor and having a long medical career, and that's just the truth of the matter, and that's what's standing in the way right now. If Jacob Trouba's wife was a stay-at-home mom, I guarantee you, Jacob Trouba's probably going to say, "Okay, I'll leave." I'm assuming. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I would imagine that would be the case.
If you can't move on from a player, then everything is pointing to is he's got a no trade clause, even though he's got a limited no trade clause. Doesn't make any sense to me. So
I don't understand these comments. Don't think people listen. No, I'm not saying. I'm talking about booing him because he's doing the right thing by his family. To me, that's not something you boo. I mean, if you want to boo him because he said disparaging things about your team, sure, that's my point. It has nothing to do with. You're clearly not understanding what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying on that, but again, the fans aren't going to see it like that. The fan backlash is going to be, we had a chance to get rid of you. You made this incredibly hard. And by the way, it only gets worse next year. So he's got a 12-team no trade. So it's another time where there's going to be, yeah.
Now this
again, too, that's not for us to say though.
It has nothing to do with the money. Like, are you dad? I'm sorry, but I am. I don't care how much money I have. I'm not going to move away and literally never see my kid unless I'm coming toward the New York metro area. Sorry, that's so silly to say. Yeah, he could hire a nanny, but I'm sure he wants to see his kid. Not be away from him for six months. Let's just say these comments get me, because let's just say he gets traded to Utah. How often Utah don't come to the Eastern Conference very often. So in that situation, I got news for you. He's not seeing his kid very often. So give me a break with, you just hire a nanny. It's
also not for us to say how he should spend his money or hire a nanny. That's not for me to say. It's just when you have situations like this, you have to figure it out. Because you can get, I mean, to talk about military kids that move around all the time. And okay, but the thing is, it's the integrity of the CBA, as you're saying right there. Trouba's doing nothing wrong, his responsibilities to his family. But here's the thing: what is actually in there in the CBA? Is he leaking out that he's not going anywhere? Because those reports did not come from nowhere. It's not that nobody made them up. So I want to know some more facts before I could really go off on this. But if he's just trying to play hardball, and yes, possibly with Anthony saying, he probably throws on teams like Florida and Tampa right now and Colorado, who have no cap space anyway to move him. But I mean, there's also other teams. There's bound to be one team on there that has some cap space. And if the Rangers are stuck with this, they're going to have to ask themselves this question: is this guy better on my roster than not? And everybody, and look, all of his defenders, all of his detractors, that's the question that's going to be there. And it's going to be there soon enough. And it's coming to a head.
Honestly, I know this is a joke. Clear it wouldn't happen, but in all honesty, he probably would have no problem going to the Rangers or the Islanders, because he doesn't have to. The Islanders or the Devils, because he doesn't have to change anything about his life. But
even Boston would be not that bad for him, but still, the Rangers right now. Chris Drury is left in a bit of a conundrum on this, and he's going to have to make that decision sooner or later, because I have also mentioned this, Anthony. There is we have talked about this. There's a human aspect in it, and you want players coming to your organization to see you're going to do right by them. But on the other hand, you can't just manipulate contract situations like this. We'll see about that one.
No, I said and unfortunately it's a sticky situation for both sides. I'm sure the Rangers would like to do right by him, but that's in this situation that's hard. That's going to be hard to do. So,
Well, the thing is doing right
again,
by
I mentioned
him.
before, teams get a second buyout window if you have a player that goes to arbitration, and the award's more than $4 million. So I don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Lindgren if he were to file for arbitration, and if that were to happen, then yeah, they would get a second buyout window, but that's not a guarantee.
All right, to a bit of a happier topic. That's not.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.